has to learn. A male child has to learn how to be a man. And I know we are living in a very fluid society where, women can be men and men can be women, and they can identify with whatever they want to identify with. And while that is their human right, they can identify and be whatever they want to be. But it doesn't change the reality of what you are. You can be a man and consider yourself a giraffe if you want to. That's your prerogative. But the reality is, both on a biological and an atomic way, you're still a man, and as such, you have certain attributes that is unique to the man. And again, so I say that a man is not born; he's made. So I wrote something down here that may help. So move this conversation a little forward. So it says science seems to suggest that a man child born into the world have no apparent purpose or responsibility compared to the woman who was born with the potential for nurturing and caring in all the greater attributes of human ethics. In other words, when a man is born into the earth, he has nothing per se in a nurturing way. A woman is born with womanly parts, breast, uterus, and all of the other things that comes with creation and care and nurturing. But a man doesn't necessarily come into this life with those clear and apparent attributes. So that's why he has to be trained to be.
So many choices, so many decisions, and so little time. Do you wrestle to understand the equations of life? Start a business or start a job? Should you get in a relationship, or do you end one you're in? Is there more you should be doing with your life? What's your purpose and calling in life? Decisions. Are you at a point in your life where you need answers? There's definitely hope. Join the Unplugged experience. Get connected with noted life coach, spiritual teacher, and catalyst for change, Dr. Diane Clark, for her show called Unplugged.
Good morning, and thank you for joining in with us today on Unplugged. I am happy to announce that the month of June is dedicated to men, and we have set our focus on mentality. I have some exciting guests that are going to be on each week, and we're going to be addressing the attitude and the mentality of men, things that have kept them from progressing in life, things that have kept them in stuck places and not really moving to places of achievement and joy that the Lord has ordained for them to have. So I am going to welcome you and invite you to pay attention, bring your uncles, your sons, your aunts, your husband, whoever you can to indulge in this information now or even when it replays on the air so that you can be enriched and encouraged. Today's guest is Pastor Michael Norman. Pastor Michael Norman is a musician. He's also a pastor in the Orlando area. He is very astute when it comes to psychology and dealing with the mindsets of people. So I know you're going to be blessed today as he addresses us concerning mentality. Good morning, Pastor Michael.
Good morning, Dr. Clark. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to be your guest here this morning. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
I'm excited as well. I am going to let you further introduce yourself and then just start in on the topic of mentality.
Okay, very good. Again, thank you for the opportunity to share with your audience. My name is Michael Norman. One of my functions is pastor, and though it might have been a Freudian slip, it is a reality that sometimes we get lost in our functions rather than our reality. So I make that distinction because I want to be the best Michael that I can, so that from that I can become the best pastor that I can. So that's why I make that distinction. So, but I'm a pastor. I'm a father of three grown children. So we're kind of empty nesters, but they keep flying back in. So, you deal with it the best way we can. And husband of my wife, Francina Norman. Most of you may be aware of her. Her ministry basically spans the globe. Prophetess Francina Norman. And we've been married for 35 years now, going on 35 years. And so this whole issue of manhood it hits right at home for me, because when I married my wife, Francina, I was only 23 years of age. I mean, I did not know anything about anything, and I was fresh out of my parents' home. So I left Orlando in 1987, moved to Miami to take on this radio announcer job. I met my wife while there, and 3 months later, after meeting her, we were married. Not only married, but married with 3 kids. So I went head first. I'm talking about diving deep on the deep end
Yeah.
of the pool. I went all the way in there. But, I've learned so much as a result of it. I've never been in a committed, a committed relationship that was intended for matrimony. Been in several relationships, but
Right.
none to the extent that I got to spend the rest of my life. That was inconceivable. But somehow, when I met my wife, I don't know if it was the food she gave me, because they say that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. And she did happen to feed me one of her specialty dishes. So that I keep telling her, I tease her about it, that, yeah, now I know how we got married. You put something in the food. But 35 years later, we're still together. God has blessed our marriage, blessed our ministry, blessed our family. We've seen the favor of God on so many levels in so many different places. But specifically to the topic of manhood, I've learned, you've heard it said, man up. That's what I had to learn to do in hyper time. I had to man up, where I was just sleeping as long as I want to sleep. Don't go to, go to work when I get ready to go to work, change my linen, change my clothes, whenever I feel like it, in my parents' home. But immediately 3 months later, I had to literally become a man. And while I did have both of my parents, there were some dynamics within the context of our family that precluded my dad from teaching me the finer points of life and how to really be a man, because we even though we had a family unit, there was some level of dysfunction and um, um, we'll say dysfunction that were in place that prevented us from becoming a holistic family. And so we all have little idiosyncrasies and things that we deal with on an ongoing basis because of our past. Our past has the greatest impression on our present and our future. And that's why we have to deal with that first before we can move forward to the next thing. So when it comes to man, I like to liken it unto the Bible, obviously, because I'm a very biblical centric individual. I draw all of my philosophies, all my perspectives from the Bible. So I don't mean to come off preachy or dictatorial. But again, at 23 years of age and needing this, I needed the accelerated course on how to do, not only be a man, but just how to do life in general. And the only thing that I knew that could give me that insight was the Word of God. And it's literally transformed my life in a very, very positive and significant way, till I believe I have become an asset rather than a liability to not only my family, but to society at large. Now, when you talk about society, we have to, again, realize that society is generally built on the foundation of the man. Now,
Yes.
a lot of what I might say may sound chauvinistic. It may sound, a little heady and again, he-man or woman hater. But the reality is, I don't want to sound Neanderthal or out of date or out of touch, but the reality is, when we look at the very, very foundation of life itself, the answer to any mystery in life is in its genesis. If you want to know the purpose of anything, you can't find it in the future. You have to go back to the past and deal with the genesis of it and find out what was the intent in the beginnings. What was the mindset? What was the idea and the concept when God created human existence? And the first that he did after he created everything, the 6 days, the Bible says he created man. Now, there's some very interesting insight to the idea that God created man first, because again, his whole intent is that man was to be the foundation. He was not to be the domineering factor, but he was to be the foundation from which on which all of society would rest upon. It would literally be that foundation of the man. That's why a man who's married to a woman is called a husband, because he's supposed to be the band that surrounds the house so that he can fulfill his function, protect, provide, and procreate. So then that's the whole concept of man. And again, science seems to suggest that a man is not born. Actually, a man is made. Now, a male child can be born, but a man has to be developed.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference between being a man and being a male in that regard. So we have to grow through life. There are things that we have to learn, we have to experience. But I believe that God has biologically equipped a man to endure those training, to endure those learning, to embrace those seasons of challenges in a way that's significant to man. Not that a woman doesn't go through those same things, but again, this helps to delineate their levels of responsibility. I in no way am a woman basher. I am a woman praiser. I celebrate womanhood or womanhood. I celebrate that with all vigor and with all candor, because the truth of the matter is, as they say, that the man is the head of the house, but you know what? The woman is the neck that turns the head. She's got, and I'll tell you this too, that if you look throughout history, this is for all you know, the He-Man haters club, you know, those who think in a chauvinistic way, throughout the Bible, greater men than myself have fallen to the influence of a woman. So she definitely has a level of influence and power that's uniquely hers. The Bible says that a husband dwell with your wives according to knowledge, not according to strength, not according to power, but according to knowledge, because you have to know something about her to be able to properly interpret her, because she has some attributes that is foreign to man. She has this intuitiveness, this ability to see things that are not really there in the mind of a man. And she can, in other words, she can walk in an office and say, you know, your secretary is trying to get at you. And the husband like, what? No, she just takes notes and, you know, no, she wants you. And so she has that intuitiveness. And if you don't respect that as a man, you will consider her your enemy rather than your ally. And so that, again, has to come through development. A man has to learn. A male child has to learn how to be a man. And I know we are living in a very fluid society where, you know, women can be men and men can be women, and they can identify with whatever they want to identify with. And while that is their human right, they can identify and be whatever they want to be. But it doesn't change the reality of what you are. You can be a man and consider yourself a giraffe if you want to. That's your prerogative. But the reality is, both on a biological and anatomic way, you're still a man, and as such, you have certain attributes that is unique to the man. And again, so I say that a man is not born; he's made. So I wrote something down here that may help. So move this conversation a little forward. So it says science seems to suggest that a man child born into the world have no apparent purpose or responsibility compared to the woman who was born with the potential for nurturing and caring in all the greater attributes of human ethics. In other words, when a man is born into the earth, he has nothing per se in a nurturing way. A woman is born with womanly parts, breast, uterus, and all of the other things that comes with creation and care and nurturing. But a man doesn't necessarily come into this life with those clear and apparent attributes. So that's why he has to be trained to be a man, because again, he's not per se a receiver as much as he's a taker. And so you have to kind of tame that proclivity that most men have to take things. You know, if you can see two little kids on the playground, most likely the one who's taking the other child's toy is is probably a man child. They tend to see it, want it, and take it. So
In that order.
yeah, exactly, in that
See
order.
it, want it, and take it.
Take it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, history is littered with evidence of that fact. And so that's why we have to come into something that helps to develop our sense of ethics and morality and righteousness. Because if we don't have that, then, you know, we go back to being Neanderthals. We go to a place where we're just as barbaric as any lion or any jackal or anything in the wild, because we become actually, I believe that our society is the way we've learned how to do society is what separates us from the wild kingdom. You know,
Right.
we've learned how to share, we learned how to be compassionate, we've learned how to give of ourselves and things of that nature, and how to protect. But we have that capacity. We have to learn. But if you just drop a child off, you remember that Disney movie, Jungle, what was it, Jungle something, I forgot the name, but it's a Disney movie. A child is born in the wilderness, so he didn't know anything about society, how to engage and all of that. So
Right.
but he knew a lot about wildlife hunting and things of that nature. And so that's kind of I believe, for me, it's the kind of nature that man comes with. That's why a real man has to have a man to help curb their wild tendency. And I know that might sound a bit Neanderthal, but that's the reality. That's why you have such high crime in our societies when a man is absent from the home, because he doesn't have that strength to jerk that sense of selfishness out of him, to inspire him and to drive him to greatness. It's not an easy thing to be a father. It's not an easy thing, because you've got to be on guard 24 hours a day. I said it before, a man is the very foundation of society itself, which starts in the home. And so, as they say, the most women get offended by this old saying that behind every woman there's behind every man there's a great woman. And I would suggest a maybe a pivot in their perspective about that statement, because the truth of the matter is they're not giving the power to the man. He might have the press, but he doesn't necessarily have the power. He might get the popularity, but he doesn't necessarily have the power, because the power is behind the throne. And most women are not have to check themselves also when it comes to the being willing to not get the press and not get the popularity, not get all the likes and the thumbs up, and be content with that. You know, because a woman's strength is her ability to influence. So again, if we again look into the reality that a man's basic responsibility, if I take it from Genesis, here's three things that God gave Adam. Number one, he created him in his likeness. Number two, he put Adam in his presence. And then number three, he gave him a job. So
Say that again. He gave him a what?
He gave him a job.
You mean he meant for the man to work? He was designed to work?
Absolutely. Designed and equipped to do so. So he made him in his image, put him in his presence, and then gave him a job. And when those three things were fulfilled and active, then he said, "It is not good for this man to be alone. I will make a helpmeet for him." Now, conversely, the same is true. If a man does not have the presence of God, he doesn't have the image of God, and he will not work, it is good for that man to remain alone. So it's important for us to make that distinction. I've told my daughters years ago, when they were young, I say, never accept a man the way that he is, because it becomes self-evident that you settled too soon. And what did I mean by
Wow. Wait a minute. Wait a minute, Pastor Michael. Wait a minute.
that?
Never accept a man the way he is, because what's the
it,
rest of that?
it will become self-evident that you settled too soon.
Settle too soon.
Now, what do I mean by that? I mean simply this, that it's the responsibility on a DNA level. It's written in our coding that we have to develop into a man first, fulfill. Because what happens is a woman has this tendency to want to nurture and provide. And so if she meets a man who's not completed his maturation process, he will
Wow.
settle for the fact that she's willing to hold him to her breast and allow him to suckle at her breast rather than giving him the incentive to go out and continue in his maturation process. That's why, I've never seen it so much as I've seen it today, that women are so successful and they're driving better cars, they're living a better life. However, I've seen now that men are on the passenger side while the women are driving. Now, I know that might sound old fashioned, but the reality is there's some serious implication there, because now you've stunted the growth of that man to the point where he doesn't feel like he needs to be the provider. And now, instead of providing, protecting, and procreating, now he feels entitled. And that's the
Right.
danger.
Right. I'm saying right to that, because now marriages are upside down,
Mm-hmm.
and we have the woman leading the home and the man just riding along because there's not much demand put on him. But
Right.
Pastor Michael, the other thing with that is when God created Adam, he created him to have dominion. He created him with an appetite to reign and to rule. And what we miss out of that is that Adam had to grow into that, because the moment that Eve brought him a suggestion that he knew was not the will of God, he immediately consented to it. And we have to look at his environment. He was surrounded by animals. He was surrounded by a jungle type situation. But here
Right.
is one person that speaks like him, that looks like him. He even said to her, "You're bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh." He had identified with her.
Yeah.
And that same identification is going on now with men. They
Mm-hmm.
they are not looking for a helpmeet or someone compatible to them. They're looking for someone that can, quote unquote, help them in many cases.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And one thing I always make a distinction in that creation story is that um, Adam was the first of obviously a first human being, but the thing about him is that he came as a adult image. In other words, he didn't have a
Right,
chance to grow up.
right,
That's why he didn't possess the internal fortitude strong enough to resist the influence of the woman. Even the Bible says that Jesus, uh, he grew and learned obedience through the things that he suffered. So there's a certain level, I believe, value in suffering that builds internal fortitude so that you can stand against the tide of public opinion and peer pressure and things of that nature.
that is so important to know. And I just hope that the men are watching, the sons are watching, uncles, brothers are paying attention to the information that's being brought forth, because the man is the backbone, not just of the family, but of society. If it wasn't so, we see even in LGBTQIA group, someone takes the role of the male,
Right.
and someone takes the role of the female. So you see that even in that group, though they are same sex, they bring distinguishing roles to their relationship, because
Right.
we can't change that. I don't care how powerful we become as women with all that we can do. We cannot release, we cannot multiply, we cannot reproduce without the male seed. You
Right.
have to have the male seed. And so I heard you in the beginning of your talk, saying how the woman came equipped to nurture. Her body is designed to nurture, and men have a design also to release. They're the
Mhm.
ones that start the process of reproduction. The thing
Mhm.
is, when a man gives a woman a seed, then she gives him a whole baby.
Right.
And that's how vital it is for us as a society to learn how to work together. And that seed is not just producing children. A man can give a woman an idea, and when he sees it again, it is much greater than the seed of thought that he planted.
Yeah. Yeah. Thumbs up. 100%. I agree 100%. Thusly, it is why God is coming back for a bride, not a
Yes,
groom,
yes,
because he recognizes her ability. That's our responsibility to influence the world. And so it in no way minimizes or marginalize the importance of woman by promoting man. Manhood is, as a matter of fact, it enhances society. It ensures
yes.
that we have a society that's built on principles, ethics, and morals. But again, and there, James Brown said it's a man's world.
Right.
But even James Brown had to admit that it wouldn't be
Would be
nothing
nothing. Yeah.
without a woman or a girl. So hey, there you have it. So, but they're designed to work in tandem. You know, one is the giver, the other is the receptacle, and they work together to produce a harvest. But I think the more we begin to create too much of a distinction or of value. Now we know there's a distinction anatomically and purposefully, but when we
Right.
ascribe value more to one over the other, then that's when we get into this whole woman's power movement, and you know
Right.
it kind of breeds a sense of strife and competition, and you know that leads to something that I don't think that we really want to even experience. But we are living it out now because women, by and large, are. I mean, you can see it in the music, you can see it in society. Everything is almost becoming androgynous in the sense that you can't tell one from the other. And but it doesn't, again, it does not dismiss the idea that there is an intelligent design not only to the universe but to those who inhabit the universe.
That is so powerful. Listen, we are discussing in this month of June mentality. We're dealing with the mindsets and the attitudes of the way men have grown to think about the society, about family, and we do have a lot of brokenness when it comes to our men. And my aim and my prayer is for the restoration of the man, but in his restoration, that he would learn how to work with his counterpart, with his the one that's designed to be his help meet. That means that she's adequately equipped to support, to love. And of course the enemy gets in and he distorts. He distorts anything that he gets in, and he causes it to be perverted, so that as women function at the way we were designed, it can be a thankless job if a man does not know how to appreciate her and value her as a help instead of a competition, and
Right.
see her as a completion. We've been talking with Pastor Michael Norman, pastor of the Movement Church in Orlando, Florida. I told him that they, as the Movement Church, they are literally transforming a generation. And I'm so excited to have you, Pastor Norman. If you have a final comment or something you would like to contribute, please do so at this time.
Well, you know, I'm a pastor, so we get, you know, we take 3 closings. So there's always a final remark. And one more
Okay.
thing, and one more thing. But I'll keep it to one closing, and that's this: that when a man and a woman comes together, we have to deal with this idea that it's marriage, or particularly marriage, is a 50-50 proposition. It actually takes 100% of each, 100% of the man, 100% of the woman.
Right.
They bring that into the relationship. But if we bring it into a marital relationship, we have to also understand that that marriage is not designed to complete. See, a man is not to marry a woman simply to feel a sense of completion, or a woman to a man for a sense of completion. But what it actually does is they are to come together in order to complement one another. See, so if you find your completion in your spouse, then that in and of itself exposes a dysfunction of some, or lack or deficiency in that individual themselves that has to be dealt with. So it's the joining together, not that they complete one another, but they complement one another. It's kind of a hand in a glove. The glove was made for the hand, and hand was made for the glove. And so once we, I think, deal with some of the roles that we ascribe to men and to women, and without a sense of competition, without a sense of hierarchy or dominance, because remember, as you said earlier, God created Adam and gave him dominion over everything that he made except the woman. And so that has to be kept in mind. And, there's something to be said about, again, even when we read the scripture, there's almost this male chauvinistic tendency when you read it, because women in many parts of the Bible seems to be diminished in her importance. But again, that's a discussion for another day. That's
it is. Because the whole mentality behind the Bible is that God was preparing a seed. He wanted to maintain a seed line so that when he decided to get into a body as a man, he would have a way to trace his lineage, who he was, his development. Right. So yes, we'll have to get together and talk about that. A lot of people are not aware that the whole thing, that it wasn't that he was ignoring women, but he wanted to maintain a seed line. He was trying to keep a pure seed that he could send his son through. Pastor Michael, I thank you so much. I always enjoy dialoguing with you.
Thank you.
If you would tell people where your church is before we go off the air, and give them a welcoming invitation, because we only have about 2 minutes.
Sure, I can do that. Again, we welcome you to our services Sundays at 1 p.m. It's called The Movement Church. We're right here in Orlando, 3839. It's called Winter Rose Avenue, right here in Orlando. You can call 407-616-2227 for more information, or go online at The Movement on Facebook. Or you can even email us at themovement@gmail.com. And I might also add, my little side job is a realtor. So if you're looking to buy, sell, or rent, you can get in touch with me as well. And we'll be happy to serve your real estate needs as well.
Thank you so much. And listen, single men, we're not leaving you out. It's just that when you start talking about mentality and dealing with the way men think, we want to see marriages healed, reconciled, and brought together with proper attitudes and mentalities toward each other. Thank you so much. I am Dr. Diane Clark, and I am empowering the harvest. We'll see you next Thursday, 10 a.m. for mentality.
Put a seed in the ground and name your seed. Experience the blessings of the Lord by sowing into this outreach. Help us take the gospel around the world. You can do so by going to Cash App. Type in the dollar amount you would like to give, and then type in $D Clark Ministries in the For section. Make sure you include your telephone number and a small prayer request. I can assure you that our prayer counselors will be praying for your need. If this encounter has been a blessing to you, send us an email at dclarkministries@gmail.com and let us know how we've been a blessing to you. Or write us a letter, or drop us a seed at Dr. Diane Clark, P.O. Box 9148, Jacksonville, Florida, 32208. Or call 904-419-9831. Stay connected with Dr. Clark and the Unplugged Ministry. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, like our Facebook page and Instagram family. This way, when we go live, you'll get an alert the doctor is live. To find out more about Dr. Clark, go to my website today. And while you're there, become a partner? Go to DianeUnplugged.com. So you've been watching the show. Would you like to be a content provider yourself and develop a show for the Inspire Network? Please give us a call today at 904 389-5592 or go to www.connecttv.com.